In one of the shortest books of the Bible, the Apostle Paul writes a letter to his friend, a Christian by the name of Philemon. And he writes the letter and he sends back with the letter, or sends the letter back with a young man called Onesimus. And Onesimus, very clearly in Paul's company, has become a Christian. Our understanding is that Onesimus seems to have been a runaway slave. Philemon was his master. And he spent time with Paul and he's put his faith in Jesus. And Paul sends Onesimus back. And the letter is fascinating because, first of all, one of the things that he does is he says that you're not to welcome Onesimus back as a slave, but as a brother, as a member of your family. One of the things we see in the New Testament is the way that Paul, the Apostle Paul, starts to dismantle the whole structure, the whole ideology behind the idea of slavery. That's something bigger in its own right, isn't it? We will maybe come back to that at some point in the future. But the other thing he says is this. Onesimus is coming back and then spiritually is going to be Philemon's brother. That's going to change his status, his legal status. It's going to change how Philemon treats him. But he's still coming back into service to work for Philemon. And so Paul says that Onesimus, and this seems to be a play on words, a play on a sort of pun around what his name sounded like. Onesimus was previously useless to you, but now he is useful. That his change of identity, his change of relationship to God, to Christ, which has changed his relationship to Philemon, has also changed his life, changed his behaviour. One of the things we pick up on in the New Testament is that Christians have transformed lives, and that affects their relationships. We've seen relationships, husbands and wives. We've also seen relationships, parents and children. But it also changes their relationship in terms of work. Now, you didn't have back then the kind of working environment that you do today. People worked within the household. And so sons worked with their fathers and learned from them. We picked up on that, didn't we, when we were looking at the father's relationship to the son, to Jesus, that Jesus is the son who learns from the father. The father shows him his work. And then you had extended households with servants and slaves in them. And they can be treated very differently and have different statuses. That's very different from the modern world, which separates work from the home, where we go to work, to the office or the factory or wherever. Although post-COVID, increasingly people are working from home again, although not in quite the same way of sort of household work. But leaving all that aside, leaving the differences aside, there are lessons that we can learn about work from the Bible. So we learn that work is a good thing. Adam and Eve were placed in the Garden of Eden. Adam was placed there to work, to serve, to keep, to till the garden, to guard the garden from danger, to protect it. And Eve was created as his helper in the work that God had given them to do. Work, of course, is balanced with rest. God makes the world in 6 days and rests on the seventh day, and so God's people are to work 6 and rest 1 day. All sorts of lessons from how we rest as well, and we could do a whole section in this little series about how rest is a witness. Maybe we will do that one at some point. And then, like I said, in the New Testament, just as Paul talks about parents and children, husbands and wives, he talks actually about masters and slaves. Just as Peter, in the letter that he writes, talks about how slaves and servants relate to their masters, not just to good and loving and compassionate and generous and just masters, but to unjust ones as well. So, just as marriage, just as family are a witness, so too work, employment, and our attitude to work are examples of witness. Paul says to slaves that you are to work for your masters, to do good, not just when they're looking at you, not just when you're under observation and under scrutiny, but you're to do your best, knowing that actually you work for the reward of God. God sees all that you do and God rewards your work. That sense there, again, I've talked about how Paul begins to demolish the foundations of slavery. That sense there, that message there, that if your boss is unjust and doesn't pay you, well, God is still going to reward you. Similar stuff in Peter, but as I said, he also picks up on what if your master is unjust. Notice as well that Paul in Ephesians 6, when he says, slaves, this is how you are to behave, says to masters, act in the same way that you are to care for, you are to do right, you are to do the best for your slaves. Again, even if you're not under scrutiny for how you treat them. Again, that sense of the relationship being transformed. And whilst that's not a direct equivalent to modern day work, I think there are lessons for us. That we are a witness as Christians by the way that we approach work. Are we diligent? Do we see work itself as a good thing or a necessary evil? Do we have a healthy attitude to work, and why? Do we work hard, but also do we know the limits of our work, both the limits of our own ability, so that we don't try to take too much on, so that we're able to delegate and trust and work as part of a team? And do we take time off to rest properly? And alongside that, there's how those of us who are employers, whether that's as a business owner or as a manager in the team leader, how we treat those that work for us. Are we harsh? Are we micromanagers? Are we lazy, just giving them work to do so we can put our feet up? Or are we diligent in our work as well? Are we generous in our provision? Do we pay well? All those kinds of things. And they're a witness because people see how we live. And once again, we start with the witness by how we live, but then we are also able to give a reason for the hope that we have. So why should Christians be different in their work life? Well, Christians should be different at work because of the hope that we have, because we have a God who sees us and rewards us. So there's another aspect of how we can be witnesses in our day-to-day life. Notice that I didn't talk about the opportunities to share your faith at work. Those exist. They will vary from workplace to workplace. But what I would say is that what you need to be careful about is that you don't get to be seen as somebody who is actually taking liberties, just using the opportunities to share your faith and not doing your work. Observe the rules of the workplace, do your work well, and actually take the opportunity when it is given to you. Well, thanks for listening in. We're going to wrap up this series in a last video, which will look at the whole of life and the life together as believers, our corporate life and worship together as Christians, and how that's a witness. That will be our last video. I hope you found this little video series helpful, just to dip into thinking about how we share our lives and share Jesus. If there's anything else you'd like to ask about, or to get us to get me to pick up on and cover, then drop a comment and we'll try to pick up on those things. Thank you for watching on this.